if you're in any form of entertainment, whether it's comic books or movies or television or whatever, you've got to be grateful to the fans.
Then bring it down hard. Someday, put it together.
What are you doing?
Dance off, bro.
Well, folks, welcome to another comic book talk. We're going to be here. We're going to talk some nerdy stuff with this Eric O'Sullivan, my brother. Thank you so much. I'm glad we got our schedules to align. We're talking comic book nerdy stuff. It's going to be a blast. So thanks for hanging out with me, brother.
Thank you for having me. This is great. We had a jam a couple of months ago that got interrupted by some bad weather, and we finally got the chance to make up for it. And this is great. Yes. I've been looking forward to hanging out with you. A couple of geezes talking about
old school OG stuff, talking comics, that kind of thing. And yeah, we run in the same circles. We love that nerdy stuff. We're talking. We're always cross paths on other shows and things like that. So no, let's do a comic book talk. Let's get in the weeds. So. But let's start with just like the news, because we're so old. We could go down the rabbit hole of all this old stuff. But you really do spin your wheels at your local comic shop, which is really cool, right? And I really wanted to get into that first and foremost about new comics, and because you've talked pretty regularly about like your return to comics. You kind of like took a hiatus, like myself. You took a hiatus from all this, and I will admit my YouTube stuff kind of forced me back into the world of trying to give things a fair shake. But you're even more than me. You're literally making the Wednesday trips out to the old local show.
LCS, our local comic shop.
Yes, awesome.
So, I was there today.
Let's go. All right, well, let's hear a little bit about that experience. Like, what brought you back?
Being invited as a panelist, specifically on Wes from Thinking Critical. He's a really good guy. He's got a pretty big station. He's almost up to 30K now. He's a 20-year Air Force veteran. God bless you, and thank you for your service, man. So he's retired. He lives in the Philippines with his wife and his 3 small children, and this is what he does in his retirement. He has a comic book station, and he started inviting me on for some reason over a year ago, and I was like, I'm just the fan. I'm the lapsed fan, and they kept on saying, you got to pick up on, Daniel Warren Johnson. You got to pick up on Jeremy Adams. You got to check out World's Finest by Mark Waid. And I'm like, huh? And so I wasn't buying new comics at the time. For everyone out there in TV land, I'm a 50-year-old Bronze Age baby. I grew up with spinner racks and the newsstand, and then the advent of the direct market. And I had a comic book shop right in downtown Boston, where I was born and bred. And I was blessed and lucky enough to be able to, go there frequently. And so the comic books have always been a part of my life, and they have continued to. It's been a lifelong hobby, and I'm just blessed and grateful that we have such a nice community, and that we interact, and we get to relish our hobby and enjoy it together. Isn't that cool?
It really is. And I love the fact that there's so many folks that, it's not like a giant Venn diagram of us coming together. And of course, I'd been following Wes this whole time.
Oh, cool.
And it really is, like you said, it's like, okay, listen. And I've said, listen, I get into a lot of new comics. And I will say there's definitely a problem in the industry with the big two in particular, but that doesn't mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are good things in there. Sometimes you just might have to dig and scratch a little longer and a little deeper to find something, or you may have to go outside your comfort zone and go to a more independent agency, or maybe go to Image Comics and things like that, which people are just, not as, they grow up as Spider-Man people. They're like, that's all they know. And it's like, well, you may have to, did you check this out? You check that out. So we're just kind of an age where things have just changed so much, is what I think. So,
here, the ubiquitous flat bag that we get from our local comic book shop. And I just bust some comic books out that I bought just this week. And I've been getting comics from Scout Comics. I've been getting comics from Mad Cave Comics. I've been getting more IDW.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, Dark Horse is great. You know what I mean? And there are so many other presses out there too. And I like giving the indies a chance. I'm a sucker I can get pulled in by a slick cover still. And but it's like,
we grew up in that era. Like look, guys, the foil covers and chromium covers worked. I mean, they really did. I mean, let's be honest. We're byproducts of that actually happening. So
I just bought this
a facsimile,
181 facsimile, and this is what nailed me was the foil
it's all
cover,
foil chromium.
And I'm like, okay, you have a place with me. You have a place on my spinner rack. You really do.
Now you have a physical copy of 181. I mean, even if it is a facsimile, who cares? Most people don't own it.
I went out today and I picked up because it turned me onto it. And last year, when I started my show last year, I started with because I wanted to do content. I wanted to take a clean break away from everyone else is doing outragey hot takes. So that's how I got my start. Like a bunch of us, we all start on our iPhones with a tripod, with a ring light tripod, and then you graduate. I mean, hats off to Gary Beekler of Nerdrotic, and he's the one. I was on a member stream, and he's like, "Yeah, you just need a really good mic and a decent webcam and something to talk about." That's a paraphrase, but that I think that really nails the spirit of what he was sharing. That like you too can do this. And so I upgraded. I got a Blue Yeti. I got a webcam and a desktop.
It's so funny that you say that. I gave they were on BBC, the real BBC, and I didn't know what to do to kind of get my question answered. So I sent a $20 super chat in and asked them about doing content. I said, basically my takes are very similar to their takes. I don't want to I felt like I'm going to be ripping you off. I'd be repeating. And both he and Az were both like, no, we not only need you to do, like, we not only want you to do it, we need you to do it. They need to hear more voices. They need to hear be honest, be who you are, but I'm we're about their same age. We have very similar backgrounds. It's like, and you feel like you're pounding the same drum. And I when I met Gary in Orlando, he came down to Florida and visited. I kind of said, I needed your permission. And so it's weird to say that, but it was like, that was really what I needed. I needed you to kind of be like green lighting, echoing very similar tastes, which is pretty much what I was saying. Not like, not everything is going to align perfectly, but if you're cut from the same cloth, the same era, the same sort of collectability, the same love, you look at things through the same lens. I think that's what you're finding too. You're like, how could I not want a foil covered version of Incredible Hulk 181? Like how?
It's so slick. And then today I picked these up. I picked up the facsimile versions of Wiz Comics #1.
Oh, first Shazam. Yeah.
And Tech 38. They didn't have Tech 27. Robin. They sold out of it, of all things. And I'm like, no. You know what? I'm actually a bigger Robin fan than I am a Batman fan. So I got, okay, I'm in for Robin's first appearance. And I read these over lunch today. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what fun. These are funny books.
That Detective 38, I have a Toys R Us version of that. I know it came through one of those chintzy Toys R Us thing. I threw it in a bag and a board, still in the collection somewhere.
That's so cool. And just the ads in this, and these are okay for everyone out there that doesn't know. The golden age of comics happens between 1938 and 1955. Now, I get my definitions and standards from the Overstreet Price Guide. There's a glossary in the back of it, and it will literally tell you, answer your questions, what age are we in? Now, there's something called the Atom Age that is a mini age between 1945 and 1955. Most people ignore that and just say, the golden age is from 38 to 55. The Silver Age between 56 and 1970. The Bronze Age between 1970 and 1984. The Copper Age between 84 and 93. And according to Overstreet, we are in some nebulous catch-all modern age of comics since 1993.
Yeah, it's too nebulous for me. I think we need to have an old.
Yeah.
I'm with the sports card guys where there's like an ultra modern. We need to have like an ultra modern terminology, which is probably around Miles Morales coming into play. So I think it's about
I would be comfortable extending that Copper Age till 2000. And then having a break there at the Renaissance, at the Millennium, and call it the Millennium Age, because the Silver Age and the Bronze Age both go for 15 years. So I think that 15 years sounds like a really good time for a generation and an age of comics. So I would love to push the end of the Copper, include the implosion and include the Renaissance that brought the superheroes back, like Morrison's JLA to Morrison's New X-Men, like that kind of like the superheroes
you know
are
what?
back.
Ultimate Spider-Man started in the fall of 2000. That's that would be our line right there.
Yeah, like it's the millennium. It's the new millennium.
It's changed everything with Ultimate Spider-Man, because then you ended up with this whole alternate creation that Bendis was on and all that. So yeah, so 2000. Yeah.
Dude. Oh man, I loved Ultimate Team Up. I thought that was so fun. I loved making Peter a kid again, a 15-year-old kid. I loved the inventiveness of making him the webmaster of the Daily Planet. That was so funny.
Yeah.
And it's clever too. And
I think we did really well. Like I said, I've told Bill, I did really well. It took about 10 years for them to break it for me. And that was when they kind of went down the rabbit hole. They started to figure out what they manufacture the Miles Morales stuff into it. And then to figure out how to suck him into the 616 was where they kind of lost me a little bit. But I don't want to derail our train too much. But
I'd say that 2015 would be a great place to end that era and to start a new one. Because that's when Secret Wars.
Yeah.
And you destroyed the multiverse, and you folded Old Man Logan and Miles in, and then, but also, I mean, that was a really interesting time. Me Too happened, the presidential election happened, people lost their minds, and the whole tone of publishing kind of changed around that time too. Now, people say that like, well, Marvel really goes back to about 2010, 2012. Sure, I get you there. I mean, Rome didn't, Rome made a burned overnight, but it didn't, it's steady fall of the empire happened over 100 years, something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I could do a break at 2000 and another break at 2015 without a problem. Well, because you had read it, and we talked about this before, and you mentioned your facsimile Hulk 181. You got me out there, and I went ahead and read the new Incredible Hulk reboot #1.
Cool. I picked up issue 2 just now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
that's good. So what drew you in to like pick this up?
It was specifically Philip Kennedy Johnson himself, because he was one of the writers that the gang at Comics Aficionados told me to keep my eye out for. They were like, "You're not reading Action Comics by Philip Kennedy Johnson?" And I'm like, "No." And they were like, "Dude, what are you thinking?" So I took their advice. I started picking up Action Comics right at the end of his War World stuff, and I'm like, "Whoa, this stuff is really good." He knows how to write Clark's character and dialogue. That goes a long way with me in this age of how no one seems to keep their consistent voice. Now you have a core of writers that can really do very well with keeping the tone of the character in a consistent voice, which is, I find that refreshing. I like that. So Philip Kennedy Johnson, and then was the Nick Klein art, which I thought the art in that was just amazing. And I had a good time reading that book. And so I took a chance on issue 2. So I'll stick into it for a little while.
Yeah, I'm good. I could go on and read another issue. I would say that it was interesting to see how they wanted to handle the Banner Hulk thing, the dynamic, and they kind of have a nice like twist approach to this, where he just like wakes up and something has happened.
Yeah, you
so it's like,
the diner's been destroyed, and he's like, "What did I do now?" And it opens up just like the TV show. He's man on the road. I could basically hear the music. What do they call that? The Lonely Man? Is that the name of the song? Do.
Yeah, right. And then we have just another whole little backstory that kind of starts manifesting itself. And I think the art was great. I'm not thrilled. I'm having a hard time with the color palette. I know you guys in chat, during this premiere are probably sick of me complaining about the color palette issues.
Oh, no,
but it seems like we use a lot of, look at this, light blues and purples, pinks, magentas. I'm just having a hard problem with all the color palette of this ultra modern books. It just seems like it's
infinite color palette now, and it seems everything is the purple, blues, and pinks, and it's like, I think that's everywhere in advertisement too. So that is, I think, a different issue, no pun, than anything else. I mean, you have this wonderful, vibrant, huge. I mean, remember those the Ultimate Comics? We were talking about that, but they started using digital blur effects and very eye-popping colors, very like,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah, the primary colors just jumped off the page at you.
yeah, I think they've lost that. I think there is some kind of, maybe there's some kind of, I don't want to call it conspiracy theory, but there's no foil in my hat, but I mean, all this pink, purple, blue stuff, that's like, I know there's an unsavory term for that. I'm not going to, but it's more of like, I see through it, and I'm like, there might be some kind of weirdness going on.
But I think the art is great. I was shocked. I'm not super up to date or familiar with Klein's work.
Me neither.
But I would say this for the Hulk, this was very, very good. And I will say this, like, I don't think there was one panel I thought was a little, but again, if this was the worst panel compared to some other modern books, there's a lot of modern books. You have one or two panels. You're like, oh, what happened here? But it's not really a panel off. It's just the way he's trying to express Banner's moment there. It's like it kind of lost me a little bit. Yeah, the one on the right.
With the like this uneasy look on his face, like,
yeah, but you're like, you don't. I mean, he could be expressing all. We could have all sorts of fun at trying to change up. Just put it in a standalone meme, and you could have all sorts of different different fun at his expense on that panel. But it's not. It's still super detailed. I mean, there's intricate details with the facial hair and things like that. So. Yeah, I got to give Klein a lot of work, a lot of credit. I mean, he like literally wrote a face on the dollar bill. I know I joke, folks, but this is the kind of stuff that's been lost in a lot of other books these days. So,
yeah, I can still see the digital manipulation everywhere in this too, which for me visually is a drawback. I'm to the point now where I have to get very super picky on what I buy, because I don't. I'm a Bronze Age baby. I have a thing for the organic line. I got. You can tell, like, you can feel the weight of the inker's hand sometimes, and in the shadings and the hatchings and the cross hatchings, and this goes right from line art to the colorist now a lot of the times, and for me that's beginning to be a red flag, because I'm starting to get really dissatisfied with printing up what should be a webtoon, something that looks a lot better with a backlit tablet and not on a printed page.
Yeah, because I think the one thing that, would maybe summarize what you're trying to get at is it just seems all very nondescript and interchangeable. Like it really could just be, I mean, no offense to Nick Klein, it's a satisfactory work, but at the same time, you could probably list 6 other artists and I'd be like, okay, that's them. Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not like when I can pick up something and go, oh yeah, that's Ditko. That's Miller.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Look at this. I can look at an '80s Marvel cover and be like, Klaus Janson inked this, or even he did a lot of DC work too. Like he was, oh gosh, like those last Flash issues. Like you got Carmen Infantino doing the line work, and you got Klaus Janson inking it. Like for like everything leading up to 350. I mean, I love all those covers, and I'm just like, look at that Janson ink work. I love it.
I can tell you, man. This middle panel made my day.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, he's just bringing stuff in. And the mole man
thing coming in, mole man, and then the man thing. I'm like, oh man, you okay? You hit me in my feels.
And look at that. That's Jesse Blaze right there too. I mean, Johnny Blaze.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's
beautiful.
Great. That's real. That's the real Ghost Rider.
That's some Ghost Rider. Yeah, I mean, this whole thing right here just made my day. So
that's great.
I was totally down, and I really love this shot with him looking back over his shoulder, just enough without it being sort of like, I don't know. And again, I will say this too: like the page designs and stuff felt more natural and a flowing of a traditional comic book storytelling and approach. Whereas other stuff, sometimes I'm like, what are they doing? Why are we wasting a whole panel? Or why are we wasting whole pages? And yeah, good stuff. I'm glad you mentioned this book because I would not have read it otherwise. I'm having a hard time knowing kind of what to pick up, and things don't tend to have much of a longevity for me. I get into it by 3-4 issues in. I'm like, I'll get to it when I get to it. I'll get to it when I get to it.
Are you reading any Jeremy Adams on DC?
I am. Hang on. I'm trying to keep track of which ones he's on.
He's been writing Flash for the past, I think, 3 years or more. And that's what actually the big one that got me back into it. Like people are saying, no, you gotta like, because it was Heroes in Crisis that broke my heart, and that's when I took my big break. I was done with DC Comics. That they could actually, it wasn't just Tom King's fault for writing that; it was editorial and anyone that green lit that work, and I had such a huge problem with it too. As many people did, but I'm a huge Wally West fan. I mean, I grew up Robin, and who was Robin's best friend? Kid Flash.
Right,
And
Kid
I'm
Flash,
just, I loved that entire Wally West Flash run. I've read it twice over, and it's some really good comic books, especially the Bill Messner Loeb stuff. It's like really kind of soapy and has really great melodramatic moments. But I found that was really entertaining. But
pull it up. He's doing the Green Lantern Dawn of DC,
Yes.
the reboot on Green Lantern, and I've really enjoyed that actually.
Mm.
I did not think I would, and I think I said it in my review, but I'd give credit to it in that the one thing he did do that not all of their writers did for their Dawn of DC books was explain what's been going on, so I can kind of jump in. Like the whole point of doing your reboot was so that I can actually follow along. He did a pretty good job here of, hang on here, let me change up the format on this app.
Yeah, he's got that info dump page that's about 4 pages in.
Yes,
just
right
like,
here,
we go.
right here.
Yeah.
There we go. So there I go. I can catch up now. Okay, there you go. So now if I want to go back, and I do wish they would footnote a little bit, editorial notes. They don't tend to do that, but I thought all of this was really good, and I got a good feel for what Hal really is. I didn't get something.
Buddy.
Yeah, I didn't get something weird. I didn't get some sort of weird twist on Carol. I didn't get anything strange. I will say, a little bit. They broke me a little bit with this cover. This cover's awful. I hated this cover on number 2. There's a variant cover, which I don't know why we have to have variant covers on every single freaking comic book. However, there is a variant cover that Tony Daniels does that's more of a traditional, Hal Jordan is GL. But this one with Kilowog and an apron, I did not care for that part. But but I did like that book.
People have a good theory that Kilowog's dead, and this is Hal's guilt or something, that he's like, Kilowog's not really there. That Hal's like talking to himself in his trailer, and because there's another info page about, I think on page 8 or so, that shows a report to and it just, that catches you up too. What's up with the Guardians? They're not in charge anymore. What's up with Earth? It's in quarantine. And then there's like one lantern that says deceased, redacted, so it doesn't show you the identity. But Guy Gardner is also missing from that list, and Tom King killed him in his not Danger Street, but the one with the Human Target, and he had Ice Tora, his ex-girlfriend there, freeze Hal and then shatter him. Yeah, that happened. So I don't know if that carries over in continuity, because that is Black Label, but it's Omniverse, so everything's in exactly, huh?
Yeah, I mean, and I will say this: I really did enjoy the Lantern book. I just really thought, I really hadn't read a lot of Lantern. I've taken kind of hiatus from that stuff, and it kind of wanted to make me go back. You maybe wanted to go OG. Maybe kind of want to go back and do some Neil Adams stuff, do some Emerald Dawn stuff, get into, before I get into Jeff Johns again and stuff like that. Check out
Jeremy Adams' The Flash, because tonally it fits with every single back issue that I have, from Mike Barron, George Messner Loeb's, Mark Waid, to all that Jeff Johns stuff. And it just, that's Wally. It's Wally and Linda. It's Wally, Linda, and the kids. And it's fun. And it's Flash family, because we got Jay, we got Jesse Quick, we got everyone, and these comics fit with the rest of my collection, and I'm very grateful for that, because most of these comics are just like, one of our biggest complaints is they're hiring people who have never read the book before, and they don't know how to write the character, and they don't know the mythology.
Oh, and they've made and to me, Marvel's been more criminal with this than even DC, because, as the 90s boom happened, so much of that was driven by X titles. And I try to read an X book now, I need some cliff notes on who everybody is and what their power scales are, because everything has been shifted and changed so radically that I really, and I'm the nerd that's up, that's interested in all this. I can't imagine how a normie is going to be able to follow along. And that's one of my biggest complaints. Like, what are you people doing? Yeah.
If we're confused, and the normie's going to be like, I've got 6 issues #1 to choose from with this Captain Marvel. Where do I jump on? Like, which it confuses us. It's probably impenetrable to the new fan.
That is probably one of the biggest questions I get. What do you tell people when you've got, I'll say a noob, but I don't mean completely new, but somebody who's really, maybe they've got 1 or 2 things that they're kind of familiar with. What do I read? What do I read for this particular character? Whatever. How often do you get that, and what are some of your go-tos?
It's funny. I usually don't get that question. People don't ask me that, and which is fine with me, because that came up a couple of weeks ago in conversation. And I'm like, where would I tell someone to jump on with Green Lantern? And I was flummoxed. I was like, because I'm a huge Green Lantern fan. I've got so much of it. Where do you start? I mean, I would like to suggest something such as Emerald Dawn from like the late 80s there.
Yeah.
And there was Emerald Dawn 1 and 2. And I think it's kind of archaic to a new fan. And so I would just go ahead and say anything, basically Jeff Johns' Rebirth, him and EVS, their Rebirth. That is, I think that's a good spot. Same with Flash, I guess, too. I really didn't like, I don't think that Flash Rebirth landed very well. And even EVS has said that. He's like, yeah, Jeff really didn't know what to do for 5 and 6. Just like, yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, no, I think it really is fascinating, and again, especially ultra modern, is because they constantly restart. This Incredible Hulk book that we were just talking about is literally volume 4 of Incredible Hulk, not Hulk, because Hulk is a different set of reboots as well. So it's very tricky to know how will we even manage. I feel like it's going to look, how we used to go into record stores, folks. I know you guys, CD stores. There would be so many divisions for certain artists and things like that. There'd be all these they'd make all these little plastic dividers and things in there. These poor comic book owners are going to have so many dividers now to organize things, keep things straight, because it's like, what are you going to do? The logos don't even look that different. Like if you look at like the Captain Marvel is probably the most ridiculous one. We're on like volume 8 or 9. It's like, I don't even know that I could tell them apart. I think if you laid out Avengers 2 or 3,
Avengers just they're on yet another new issue #1.
And I don't even know why.
Jerry Duggan just got a new Invincible Iron Man volume.
Okay.
And that he's on issue 8 right now with it. So, I'm gonna say hi to him I'm going to the Boston Fan Expo next week. I got my pass came in the mail today.
All right. So by the time people see this, I will have been at Tampa Comic Con. So we're recording this before Tampa Comic Con. I haven't been to a con since before the pandemic, so this will be my first con back at it. I'm most excited about to see Graham Nolan in person again. Obviously, I've talked to him during this time.
I got I got Reenie's T-shirt on right now.
There you go. All right,
that's from Fiendish. This is Radna. Sure. She's a character from Irene Strakowski's crowdfunded. Now, that's a digital artist who knows her business, man. She does things on a tablet, and her art looks amazing, smashing. It can be done.
It can be done, absolutely.
I got Action Comics recently, and Steelworks #1 on DC Comics, and I'm like, look at this flat, soulless art. It's because it's all like they say. It starts with digital line art on a tablet. Then it gets passed over. There's no inker anymore, really. It goes right to the digital artist, the color artist. The colorist is now the color artist. And once again, it's all digital. And it's like they're skipping a huge step. And I can feel it in the soul of, of the work that, there's. And it's one thing about the lettering, because, digital lettering's been going on 20 years now. So I should have gotten over that by now, but I just can't stand the cut and paste onomatopea. I mean, gee, I grew up on
some of some of us blasphemous. Like even like Amazing Spider-Man, where you had Romita Jr. on there, and you have these beautiful action sequences that he did, and then suddenly there's like this Photoshop blob on there, and you're like, I mean, we went over, like, we did a live reaction with Gray. We just pulled one up and looked at it just for the first time. It's like, brand new one dropped today, Gray. Let's look at it. And it was like, what is happening in this panel? Did Ramita do this? Does he have an aide? Is there an intern that was responsible? Because you didn't do this panel, John. Like, I literally were like, there's no possible way. There's so much of that with the digital era that we're in, where so much of this stuff seems, like you said, passed along. I think it's the appropriate word. I think it's just passed along. Just keep it moving.
Yeah, keep it moving. It's like, it's corporate product now, and so it's like now because I'm a chef, I boil everything down to a cooking analogy. So I'm like, do we really blame the book on being a Big Mac? You know, that's all it is now. It's a Big Mac. It's got the caloric value. It's got all that sodium. It's got all that bad cholesterol. It is literally a Big Mac. It is not a steak. It is not it's not a ribeye anymore.
That's true.
No.
That's true.
I will say this one thing though. You know, the best looking comic book that is hands down worth the price and quality. It's Frank Miller's Ronin Book 2. That the pencils by Philip Tan are just, that is real hand letters by John Workman. Come on, man. There's an old school quality to this book. It's brand new. Issue 3 came out last week. I don't even like the story, but every page is a splash page. And Dan DiDio himself sold me on this. I went to, sorry about that. That's my alarm. Dan DiDio. I went to Boston Wicked Comic Con. It's a new, it's old-fashioned Comic Con. No anime voices, no celebrities. It's all dollar bins and artist alleys, man. And it's like I'm talking to Dan DiDio for what seems like 10 minutes. The guy's got charisma. He's a great salesman. Whatever about his editorial skills. He's a good guy. And but he's selling me on this. He's like, look, splash page, splash page, splash page. And I'm like, look at that art. He sold me on that. And this is a great, I mean, if you want to see a comic book in 2023, check out Ronin Book 2. I mean, I don't even like the story, but that is impressive.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, folks, since you have gone through that, and we did talk about Hulk earlier, so surprise, we'll do another random giveaway. So this week's giveaway, since this man right here, I did the wrong direction. That's what I do when you're a boomer. He brought up the Hulk, so I said, well, I don't have the Hulk that he's talking about, but what I do have is probably better. It does have some issues. So for any of you who are like, I can't believe it does. Listen, this is not a book to get graded. It has some dings. It has some moments, but it's still a beautiful book. It does. This is a Dale Keown Incredible Hulk 377.
Hello.
And then, as always, I'll throw in a couple of random books for those of you. So what we get to do to decide who's going to win that book is Eric is going to think of a number between 1 and 50, and one of you in our lovely chat in real time, because sometimes there's only one of you, sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 50. Who knows how many people are out there? In this exact moment, we will come up to in a minute or so. We'll let people think about it. Eric,
drop it into the private chat then.
Private chat. No, he's going to tell you guys. He's going to tell you this is recorded, so I won't even know. Eric won't know who wins. Only you guys will know in real time. But so get your numbers in there, 1 through 50. Let us know what number it is. Close without going over if there's more than several votes, that kind of thing. But yeah, we do this. I just do this from time to time. I got to downsize, try to get rid of a few things, and you know what's nice? It's a nice book. It's just it's got some.
Can you hold it up again for the people at home?
Yes, let's do that. Then we'll
I love this. For people, I want to see the lower left corner.
Yeah,
I want to see that. I want to see the box. So people at home, if you ever wondered, now notice that Spider-Man logo. This means it came from the direct market, from the comic book shop, because the ones with the UPC symbol, those came from the newsstand. And that's how they differentiated between the two, because the ones at the newsstand, they had returnability.
I don't want to spoil what this book is. So I will
yes, so that's that's an example of the UPC signal, and that's a newsstand copy. Yeah.
Because that's for Eric. We're going to tease Eric for that book in a minute. So there you go, folks. Put your number in. Last call. Let's hear your number. And Eric, the number is
The number today in honor of my freshly retired Bruins captain Patrice Bergeron is 37.
37. So those of you in chat, those of you in the comments, hopefully you closest go home. We'll see. I'll be hitting you up to message me if you hit me up through my emails. And usually in every description, but if not, feel free to track me down Twitter. We'll get at this, and I usually throw in a couple other random books. Maybe you'll find something that you like. That's part of what I do too. I try to just throw random things in there. Hopefully, I can turn somebody on to something they wouldn't normally have read. So. Before we get to my, let's go down the rabbit hole and find some ridiculously old book. Let's do a couple things. First thing is I wanted to get your thoughts because you were talking about lettering. You were talking about some of the I'm not familiar if you're familiar with in the Spawn verse. There's something called Sam and Twitch.
I've heard of it. Yes, I was never a big Spawn fan, but
okay, I was never really. And then of course because of our good friend Gray. He got me down the Spawn rabbit hole, and I've reread. I've been reading that in real time. Well, catching up in real time. But then I went backwards and I read this is Bendis, believe it or not, back in the day.
Oh,
it's very different in their style. But I wanted to just show you this. First of all the covers. These Ashley Wood covers are very very fascinating.
Smith cover.
No, it's Ashley Wood.
That's what?
Ashley Wood.
Really? Oh wow, that's very tough. I almost thought that was Ben Templesmith. That's so good. That stuff's
Angel Medina does the art, and the lettering is Richard Starkings, and then it says with Comic Crafts Oscar Gongora, which I'm not familiar with any of that. But when did you see how they handle the dialogue? Because I thought it was fascinating the way they do the lettering. Look at the style with the way they.
Okay.
That interesting.
Interesting. That is interesting. Oh,
I really started to really enjoy it too. Look at how they kind of do the back and forth here.
Yeah.
Everything about this initial run is very, and I always like this term, and I don't even know if it's even appropriate, but I will use it. You can judge me accordingly. I call it stylish. It's got a very interesting style to it. It's very stylish. There's something stylistic about it. I don't know. And I don't know that I've ever seen that somewhere else. I mean, maybe it's just common that this is what but yeah, this is how, so you were talking about the impact of that lettering, the impact of that, and that in that book, that was one of the things that struck me so much, was how they handled the dialogue. Really
that lettering takes me out of a magazine like that. I mean, especially with indie books, I like taking chances on indie books, and then you're like, this is terrible lettering. Ugh. And like, oh gosh, if you ever have a chance, or don't. I mean, last week's Hawkgirl #1. I mean,
I couldn't do it.
What a terrible story. But I mean, that's a professional level job. This is what we're talking about. With the art's pretty decent. It's not great, but it's still that digital thing. It's got that digital flavor all over it. But then comes the lettering, and I'm just like, this is what a professional job is now. I gotta get pickier with what I buy, because I don't want to support this like we're paying what it's going on $4.99 an issue now. It was been $3.99 an issue since 2012. I got that from Comic-Con. So the medium price will be $4.99 very soon. I think Night Terrors is trying to set that tone at DC Comics to make everything $4.99 now. Action's at $4.99. Batman's at $4.99. I think Green Lantern's at $4.99. So very few comics are still at $3.99 at DC. But I thought
this was terrible. I could not get into this book at all, and I hated all of this. This, like you said, this the way the lettering's done and the way they changed the font up here. I could not stand any of this, and I forget about the story even. Then it completely changes. This is what we're getting, and then we have this radical change with this page. I'm like, what am I looking at here? I don't even.
And look at those credits real quick. We go from drawn by to colored by. There is your red flag right there. That it means there's no inker. I mean, and because not many just pencilers ink their own stuff. I mean, that's just, we all know that. And we all know that the inker gives it, body, detail, and gravity. And so the inker is being bypassed. They're taking a job away from a working artist in a way too. And also taking away the ability for the. Yeah, look at that. It's that's
building, purple building.
Oh, and look at that
Can't-
Superman bubble. That's that interaction right there is that panel right there is where I was like, look at this lettering. That's just so second rate for a top.
None of this. Yeah, look at all of it's different. It's
Yeah.
just it's like the first draft of an amateur is what it looks like to me. It's like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? You have to pick a lane with your letters. Pick a lane.
And it just something like it that just sucks me out of it. That and that cut and paste onomatopoeia. And for those at home, the onomatopoeia is a word that is spelled like a sound, poop, something like that, or like, but it's like it's your sound effect. And usually, I was talking to Eduardo Risso, the great artist Eduardo Risso, and of 100 Bullets, and he just did Sergeant Rock with Bruce Campbell, and I was talking with him at the con, and I was like, I thought that Clem Robbins did the lettering for Sergeant Rock because of the onomatopoeia, and I'm like, no, you do that, don't you? And he's like, yeah, I do. I did a lot of rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat, and in 100 Bullets, and I'm like, hot man, dude, way to go. And just like, but now onomatopoeia is done on Photoshop with the cut and paste, and it just looks tacky. It just looks so second rate, and it's the industry standard now. And
I'm glad you're bringing up the lettering because that's one of the multiple. I didn't do a review on it. I couldn't do it. I got to the end of this and I was like, what am I even looking at? I don't even. I felt like the corgi doesn't even make sense. Just like this random corgi standing here next to her. I'm sure it's supposed to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't care. I'm like, okay, I'm out. I'm just done. I just didn't care. I was like, what am I looking at?
And also, too, I don't like the whole activism thing. I don't think that the Summer of Love 2020 or BLM would exist on Earth Prime or Earth Zero, wherever they are now. I think these places are idealized fictional places where our real world, doesn't resonate that strongly. I mean, only a needy activist would insist on, that happening. Also, too, I mean, who is the most conservative voice in the Justice League? It's Carter Hall. I mean, so I wonder if how is Carter coming back into this? Are they going to have some like diametrically opposed view? You know what I mean? And my favorite parts of some of those books were Carter fighting with Ollie. Oh,
yes.
Just being themselves, but they're teammates.
Yeah. Hal versus Ollie and Carter versus Ollie.
I love Carter versus Ollie because they they love each other, but they just can't stand each other.
Yes.
But they're teammates and they got each other's back.
Well, what's the best way to close out a show, a comic book talk, folks, with me is we're going to go to an old G book. I just randomly pulled up something that's a 10-center. Glamorous Romances. I haven't done a romance book before. We haven't done one romance one doing this. All right, here we go. Glamorous Romances. Let me make that small because otherwise we'll better read it.
When did this come out?
16
more pages.
Yeah, 16 more pages.
The double life co-ed. Dun, dun, dun.
The Taming of a Wolf. Yours if you can win him.
Because the facsimiles of these golden ages that I just got, these are 60 pages, and these were a 10-cent cover price in 1940. Using my my online inflation calculator from the U.S. Bureau of Commerce, the 10 cents in 1940 goes for about $2.05 or so today, and the cover price of these were I think $6.99.
That's crazy.
And but yeah, and $6.99 because because it's on a different kind of paper stock. It's not on newsprint, and but still, I mean, just like that's a big price discrepancy.
That's a big difference. Yep.
And they were 60 pages back then.
Yeah, look at this, page 2. What can you do about pimples, acne, blackheads, and other externally caused skin blemishes?
You know, here's a good thing. I mean, one thing I noticed about modern comic books, they're under the illusion that they don't know who it's aimed at, and you can always tell through the ads.
Yes.
Who was these in? Because I was going through all of my Blackest Night floppies from what was this, like a dozen years ago, and they're all video game ads, snack food ads. Like they know darn well.
They know exactly
buying the comic book. I mean, Teen Vogue, Cosmopolitan, any woman's magazine, they don't have that problem about their advertisement. But you open a modern comic and it's all just house ads and and nothing for a product like video games or snack foods.
Yeah, I don't understand what happened with that element of marketing, but yeah, this is a glamour romance book, and clearly that's what we're talking. But look at the difference, though. We're talking about, just the inking.
Mm-hmm. It was so much more fun, or with a limited color palette like that. I just think you got more done. I mean, because with this unlimited color palette of the digital age, you probably have all this indecisiveness, and then it boils down to a muddled background and a over reliance on pink, purple, blue. And this we got like popping primary colors.
Yep. Look at that Howard Stark looking dude in the middle there. All right.
I like this. Do we know who did the art?
No, there's no credits.
Really?
There's no credits. Here we go. 1950, March of 1950.
Okay. We're going to read the indicia. The indicia is the small print that's on your funny book, and it'll tell you all the details, the volume number, and where to mail your complaints.
Yes, in March 1950, issue number 45, and bi-monthly by A.A. Wynn.
Nice.
And that's it. We had this happen before. We did a book. What was it called? It was like Wombi the Jungle Boy or something. And we didn't know who drew that one either. Maybe it was the cowboy book. We did a Western. It was Hoot Gibson or something. We had to look it up.
Hoot Gibson.
We had to find like a graded one that had the art, had the credits. You know what I mean? Like when they grade them, they'll put the credits in or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've never bought a slab.
I didn't do slabs until the pandemic, and then someone talked about, leaving money on the table, and I was like, well, how much money on the table? And then I realized, holy crap, a lot of money on the table, like a mortgage. Like my wife went, you mean we can sell that comic book for the price of a cow? I'm like, yeah, we can buy a whole cow with the book. And I'm like, oh, well, then maybe we need to make some changes and do some things. And then down the rabbit hole I went, we're now, for sort of like preservation sake of a few of them. Like I wanted another copy. I sold my copy of Pit #1, but that was like a gateway book for me, like the El Keon and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I don't need to, I read it again, whatever. But so I have one up there now so if anything happens to it, it's in case. So it's not going to fall or get damaged or whatever. Right. But it's not like it's not ever going to be worth $10,000 or anything like that. But I got it because it's encapsulated. So,
nice.
Yeah. We've talked about graded books a little bit on our
My friend Yule Carter of Fantastic Comics in Berkeley, California, has a game he plays on his weekly show called Crack the Slab, and he gently opens up a comic, a slab. He's like, I'm taking this off the grid, and he's gonna read it, and he's like, it's his keeper copy, but it's the spirit of freeing the comic to be read. I enjoy that.
That's fun.
I would still roll it up and put it in my back pocket if it was acceptable.
It's stressing me out just talking about it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I understand. They have their place. I get you. This is just general. I mean, no offense. It's entirely for the ladies. It's like literally just this romance relationship conversation and whatever that ends with a kiss. And then, all right, we're going to transition to story number 2, Careless Heart. There she is in her bikini.
Ooh, Roy Lichtenstein ripped these off too.
What's that?
Roy Lichtenstein ripped these off too. Famous the pop artist.
Yeah,
he got busted for literally ripping off romance comics.
Yeah, that's fun though. But like you said, there's like all just primary colors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Look at the chivalry. How dare thee! Smack to the face.
It's not variant covers that will boost the collectivity of these. It's scarcity, and it's because we're meant to be disposable in a way. These are a newsprint. They're brittle. They're gonna, if you don't take care of them right, they will disintegrate.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've enjoyed, this all started too with just some random idea, but reality is, even though you and I have gone to I don't know how many cons or we go to different comic shops, we may never see a Glamorous Romances. Like we just may never even see one, let alone issue number 45 or whatever this one is. And I just find this very fascinating that because of the internet, we can now, tap into some of this kind of stuff and see and also get a perspective of where comics was in its birth, its foundations to where it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this book didn't have a lot of ads though. I'm really shocked because a lot of the other ones have had ads along the way. I was
shocked too that the Golden Age facsimiles did not have a lot of ads at all. It's like this is like packed with stories.
Yeah, compared that to even the 80s and the 90s where there's like a lot of ads.
and these were 60 pages, and like
Yeah, this
so they're
book just keeps
20.
going.
They claim 28 pages for a $3.99, but that's 20 to 22 pages of story, and another 68 pages of ads, and there's like the stupid house ads too. Like,
Here's our small bust
Hello.
woman ad. No pads. There you go.
Slimmer, youthful, feminine.
Send no money, free 10-day coupon. Have a slimmer, youthful, feminine appearance instantly. It's a girdle.
And then we have Rosetta.
Yeah, that's it.
in the beautiful triangulation
from the app. Yes. Awesome. Well, man, I tell you what, we cover a lot of ground. We talked about a lot of things. We're actually going to have a show that's going to talk about the Glamorous Romances, Incredible Hulk, and
the spectrum of comics. And like, I don't know about you, but I am so looking forward to diving in the dollar boxes. That's like one of my favorite things to do, because I have a penchant for getting Marvel comics from late 1981, specifically with the Columbia Bike Contest banner ad.
Oh, it's funny that you say that,
because I was 8 years old. Hello, look at that.
These are going to Eric. He did not know this was going to happen. So this is a Frank Miller Spectacular Spider-Man newsstand.
That's
So you were on a show with Ginger Ninja. I did not forget.
Hello there. That's issue 60.
Now, this is, I assume you'd want this one too, only because it's the exact same era, but it's a different contest. It's the $2,500 contest one on this one.
They had that one. Then they also had the Toys R Us one too. That was from about a year or so before. Was that like a year or so before?
Yes, this is 46, so it's going to be about a year and a half. Yeah, a little over a year. Yeah.
Going on my spinner rack. I got a spinner rack in my living room because I got no room for it here. I'm pretty much maxed out for space.
Yes. So, I did not forget. That is for Eric. Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you, man.
That's Miller.
That's a Frank Miller cover.
Yeah. That's definitely Miller.
I got him to sign a funny book for me last year at Fan Expo. I got a copy of Daredevil 175, and I had Klaus sign it in April. So I brought it back with me in August, and Frank ended up talking to me for a couple of minutes. And I mentioned this at the comic book shop. And they're like, Frank was nice to you? I'm like, yeah, Frank talked to me like for about 3 minutes.
I would be a total teenage girl. Like, I just don't even know what to say to someone. Cause I literally would be to Frank. Like, I really wouldn't even be doing this if it wasn't for you.
So,
I literally read, it was Dark Knight Returns and Killing Joke. I would, again, told the story a million times. I'll tell it for Eric's. Batman 89 changed the game. My friend had these graphic novels, read Dark Knight Returns and Killing Joke cover to cover. Went the next day to Walden Books at the University Bookstore near USF, and it was Miller stuff, right? So it was year one, Elektra Assassin. It was like, so if it wasn't for Frank, would not be doing this. Like, he was like the gateway. He was part of the gateway drug. And to this day, I'm like, it's amazing to me.
Daredevil 175 was the issue right before the Columbia bike ad.
It's the one.
It's from late 1981, and so I'm 8 years old, and I got pocket change, and those were the first issues I started buying. I remember that because it was Kurigi the Ninja in the hand. And I got to point out to both Klaus and Frank my favorite panel. And it's like the three of us in one swoop, in one, slash. Remarkable. And the three ninjas fall dead. And then Kurigi just sheaths his wakizashi. And I'm just like, I got to point that panel out. I picked this up for $15 at the con because I didn't have a copy. But I've got both of their signatures on that. And that is like the prize of my spinner rack. And I'm just like, and that conversation with Frank was like, he just nodded, looked at me, and he was like, I remember exactly where I was when I drew this. He's like, Marvel was giving me this crappy paper, and I hated it because it's smudging. And I'm like, yes, sir. It was a nice moment, man.
That's awesome. That's so good. Yeah, his stuff. I mean, I did whole videos on some of these books. Like, I just did a whole video on 168, which is almost like this. perfect book. I'm like, this is crazy. I cannot believe how good this is. Like, it was just shocking. So, but Eric, my friend, it has been
Yes.
so great to be able to hang out with all of you and
Indeed.
all these people, these wonderful people coming and going and having comic book talks with us.
Thank you
Folks,
for
make sure
everyone in
you
the
check out
chat and everyone
all the
in the
details
and
and
everyone that's
subscribe to
hanging
this
out.
guy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I'm on vacation for a week, and then I'm gonna get back to. I make daily content. We talk about comic books every day on my channel at 3:00 U.S. Eastern. We have a coffee break. Pull up a chair, grab a cuppa, whatever it is you're shoving under your nose today, and we just hang out. We have I'm rebagging, reporting, reboxing my entire collection, and along the way, we admire the floppy, and that's where I'm just coming off with saying, like, look at the ads. The ads are these great anchors, and they're so nostalgic. They really are like for me, like from the Hostess ads to the video game ads that I never even played in my 20s. I'm like, look at this magazine.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? That's so much fun. So
cheers.
Well, with that, folks, thank you for being with us. Thanks for partnering with me. And again, thanks to Eric for being here. You
Thank
folks
you.
take care. Be blessed. Till next time, I am Pops.